The courtroom fell silent as the little boy stood up, his small voice cutting through the tension. "Mommy is lying," he blurted out, his innocent yet firm words shocking everyone in the room. His mother's face went pale, the judge leaned in, and the entire room held its breath. No one expected this twist. What could a child possibly know that would change everything? Up until now, the case seemed clear, but his next words would reveal a truth so unexpected that even the lawyers were left speechless. His story, raw, honest, and heartbreaking, would challenge everything people thought they knew. Who was really telling the truth? What was being hidden? And how would this little boy's courage turn the entire case upside down? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking revelation that left the courtroom in absolute disbelief. This is a story you won't forget. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked at the boy with a calm but serious expression. "What do you mean, son?" he asked gently. The little boy hesitated, glancing at his mother, who sat frozen, her hands clenched together. His father, sitting on the other side of the courtroom, leaned forward, his eyes filled with concern. Tears welled up in the boy's eyes, but he took a deep breath. "Mommy told me to say something that isn't true," he admitted, his voice trembling. A murmur spread through the courtroom as attorneys exchanged glances. What had he been told to say, and why? His mother quickly shook her head, her face growing red. "That's not true, baby," she interrupted, forcing a smile. But the boy didn't look at her. Instead, he focused on the judge. "I don't want to lie anymore," he whispered, his words sending a chill through the room. The courtroom felt heavier with silence. The judge studied the little boy carefully, then glanced at his mother, who was now gripping the table in front of her. "Can you tell me what your mother asked you to say?" he asked, his tone patient but firm. The boy fidgeted, looking down at his hands. "She told me to say that Daddy hurt me," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Gasps filled the room. His father's face drained of color as he shook his head in disbelief. The mother's lawyer quickly stood up. "Your Honor, he's just a child." But the judge raised a hand, silencing him. "Let the boy speak," he said. The boy swallowed hard. "But he never did. Daddy never hurt me." His lips trembled. "Mommy said if I didn't say it, I'd never see her again." The weight of his words hung in the air, leaving everyone stunned. The mother's face turned pale, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way out. "Sweetheart, you must be confused," she said, forcing a shaky smile. "We talked about this, remember?" The boy shrank back in his seat, his small hands gripping the edge of his chair. "No, Mommy," he said, his voice stronger now. "You told me to lie." His father exhaled sharply, pain and relief mixing in his expression. The attorneys whispered among themselves, sensing the case shifting before their eyes. The judge leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Is that true?" he asked the mother, his voice calm but firm. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The weight of her son's confession had unraveled everything. The boy's father finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. "I would never hurt him." The room held its breath, waiting for what would happen next. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating. The mother sat frozen, her breathing shallow, as if the walls were closing in on her. The judge let the silence stretch before finally speaking. "Ma'am, do you have anything to say?" Before she could answer, her lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently. But before she could respond, the boy suddenly turned his head toward his father, his expression shifting. "But you did do something," he murmured. A ripple of shock spread through the room. His father stiffened. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. The boy bit his lip, looking down at his hands. "That night, I heard you and Mommy fighting. I heard you say something about taking care of it." His voice shook as he struggled to explain. "And then Mommy cried all night." The father's face darkened, his jaw tightening. The mother, who had been on the defensive, suddenly looked at him with wide, unblinking eyes. The room, which had just moments ago been closing in on her, now shifted its focus. The judge tapped his gavel lightly. "Mr. Carter, do you have a response to that?" The father swallowed hard. He started, but his voice failed him. The shift in energy was undeniable. The truth wasn't as simple as anyone had thought. The father's hands clenched into fists as he let out a slow breath. "I never hurt her," he said carefully, his voice shaking. "But that night, I did say something I regret." He turned to his son, his eyes filled with guilt. "I told your mother I would take care of it because I was going to fight for custody." The mother let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You weren't just going to fight for custody," she said. "You were planning to take him away from me completely." The boy looked between them, his face filled with confusion. "But why?" His father sighed. "Because I knew she was lying, and I was afraid she'd keep you from me forever." The mother's eyes welled with tears. "I was scared too," she whispered. "I thought if I lost you, I'd have nothing left." The judge cleared his throat, bringing the room back to order. "The truth is out," he said, his voice steady. "Now we must decide what's best for this child." But just as the tension seemed to settle, the mother pulled out a folded letter from her purse. "There's something else," she admitted. "Something I never told anyone." The father's face darkened. The courtroom watched in silence. What was in that letter? And how would it change everything once again? The courtroom fell silent as the mother unfolded the letter with trembling hands. "I wrote this the night before everything fell apart," she said softly. "I was scared, but I never wanted to hurt our son." She took a shaky breath and read aloud. The letter revealed her fears of losing custody, her desperation, and the regret she felt for what she had done. She admitted that her lies had been driven by panic, not hatred. Tears streamed down her face as she finally looked at her son. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. The father sat back, his expression unreadable. The judge took a deep breath before speaking. "This has been painful for everyone," he said. "But now it's time to focus on what truly matters, this child's future." The boy wiped his eyes. "I just want us to stop fighting," he said. And at that moment, they all knew it was time to heal.